روح القديس شهادة والشريرة آمين. أبونا بشمعين تخداش اسمه اختي تنكوت كان دفع شباك لا تحسون من بيشبه تودي الأخر. Okay. We talked about the Church of the East, autocephaly. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, in the beginning of the 5th century, there's a school. We talked about Diodore and his school in Antioch, and it was opposed to two heresies: Arianism, which we talked about, and Apollinarianism, which we talked about. Okay. So Diodore, he emphasized the humanity of Christ because he's fighting Apollinarius. And he's also saying that the divinity of Christ is of the same essence with his Father to fight against Arius. However, in his emphasis of the humanity and the divinity, he is maintaining that after the union, the gnome we talked about, he is from two gnome, right? Two particulars, that these particulars remain after the union. So his school is famous. Theodore is his most famous student. We talked about Theodore. Theodore becomes the teacher. He continues to teach this, and he has many influential students. We talked about Theodoret being probably his most famous student within the Roman borders. Narsai is for the Assyrian Church of the East. He is like their Jacob of Saruj is for us. Narsai becomes very influential on the east of the Roman border in the Persian Empire. He becomes the teacher of the school in Nisibis, in Narsai. So, in among Theodore's students are people like, again, Theodoret, Nestorius of Constantinople, Ibas of Edessa, and others. So, Cyril is the Pope of Alexandria, the nephew of Theophilus, who we talked about last time. Cyril becomes Pope of Alexandria. And Cyril begins to write against Diodore and Theodore, who have already been dead. Diodore and Theodore have already been dead. Cyril is writing against them. He's not the first one. He's not the first one to write against them. Saint Gregory Nazianzus was already writing against Diodore while they were both alive. While Diodore was alive, Gregory is writing against Diodore, not by name, but he writes against his teachings. He writes 8 anathemas, 8 to 10 anathemas against Diodore. Cyril writes, we're going to get to it eventually, but Cyril writes 12 anathemas against Nestorius based on Gregory's 10 against Diodore. Okay? So Cyril's writing against them. Nestorius is Patriarch of Constantinople. Before that, he was a priest in Antioch. So let's go back to the map. Okay. Nestorius, you see where it says Germanicia? Nestorius is from here. Theodore is from here. Diodore is from here. You see how close they all are to each other? So then Antioch is here where the school is. So everybody's going to school here. And people even from Beth Nahran, Mesopotamia, are going over to go to school here. It becomes very famous. Um, I can't see Cyrus on the map, but Theodoret was also a student there. Okay. Okay, so Nestorius was a priest in Antioch before he becomes Patriarch of Constantinople, because the emperor, Theodosius II, he liked him, so he made him Patriarch of Constantinople. And there was a little bit of teams at this time. Constantinople, the church, was with Antioch a lot. Alexandria was with Rome a lot. So you had, like for example, Chrysostom, who we talked about last time, was a priest in Antioch, friend of Theodore, both students of Diodore together. Chrysostom became Patriarch in Constantinople. Also Nestorius, priest in Antioch, becomes Patriarch of Constantinople. They're not the only two. This happened a lot of times. Later, Flavian II, also Antiochian, becomes Patriarch in Constantinople. So, and before them too, this was happening. So Antioch and Constantinople had a lot of this connection, where they were sending patriarchs to Constantinople to be patriarchs there. So when Nestorius becomes patriarch in Constantinople, he has a visiting bishop who says to the people, it's more inclusive, more accurate to say about Virgin Mary, Christokos, bearer of Christ. Why? Because when you say Theotokos, this is about the divinity, and Anthropotokos, which is about the humanity. But the Christokos is for both, divinity and humanity. So this is the better expression, the more complete expression. The people in Constantinople were upset and offended because they're used to saying Theotokos about her, Mother of God. This is the traditional title. We see it centuries before this controversy. It's not innovated here. It's even in the creed of the Church of Antioch before Nicaea. You see the title, Mother of God, there. So, and notice it's Antioch. Where's Diodore's school? Antioch. That means Antioch already had Miaphysite thinking before the school existed, right? Okay. So the people are upset. They write to Cyril about this. Why did they write to Cyril? What does Cyril have to do with it? Why did the people of Constantinople, who are offended by what they heard in the church, are writing to Cyril? Why him?
They always deposed the patriarchs.
Alexandria had primacy in the east. Alexandria had political supremacy in the east.
So how come we say Antioch has, oversees the east? Yeah, we have
When I'm saying the east here in this context, I just mean the eastern half of the Roman Empire. When we say Antioch is over the east, we mean east of the border, east of the Roman-Persian border, like India or whatever, right? It's a different way of using the word east. So in the eastern half of the empire, Alexandria had primacy. There was a tradition already that Alexandria is heading these councils. Alexandria is defining the faith and Christology and this type of stuff. And they're used to, like you said, deposing Constantinople, or if anything, Constantinople's acting up, you tell Alexandria. Why? Because Antioch, before this, has the back of Constantinople. So how are you going to tell Antioch? So you have to tell Alexandria. So they tell Cyril. Cyril writes to Nestorius, very nice, very humble. The letters are available. So they always, modern scholarship for some reason tries to paint Cyril as this tyrant. It's not what happened. Cyril writes to Nestorius saying, they're telling me this, but I don't believe them. And he's talking to him very politely, giving him honorifics, and then sees what he's going to answer about what he said. Nestorius replies very haughtily, very prideful. And Cyril writes and very short. Cyril writes to him again, a second time also, very nice, humble, using honorifics, talking to him like your brother. And then finally, Cyril, then Nestorius replies also the same way, prideful, etc. And by the way, this isn't this is the fourth thing we're doing. Obviously, I'm Syriac Orthodox, but I'm presenting the history objectively to not be biased towards any side. In my opinion, anybody can read the correspondence between Cyril and Nestorius and see who's being humble and who's not. Okay? Yeah.
So, did you mention that it was a visiting bishop who said this? So it
Yes.
wasn't Nestorius itself
No, but Nestorius is defending.
defending it.
Yeah. So the visiting bishop is also from the same school of Nestorius. Okay? Yeah.
And also, the position that there are two chronomas after the union, that is the position that Theodore and they're following. And it's still the position
Yes.
of the Church of the East?
Yes. Yes, it is. And it used to be the position of the Chalcedonians, so we'll get to them. So, after Nestorius' response to the second letter, Cyril writes a third one. And the third one, he lays down the law for Nestorius, and he gives him 12 anathemas. There are 12 sentences that are Christological, again, based on Gregory of Nazianzus from before. So the Church of the East accepts Gregory. If you accept Gregory and the 10 anathemas, so that we have no difference, because that's what we're trying to say. This is the 12 anathemas of Cyril. Why would you accept Gregory's 10, who that also say Mother of God, also say the Word truly was crucified in the flesh? That's the 12th anathema. And many of the other ones that Cyril says, if you accept these, so then what's the problem? What's the problem with the 12 if you're accepting the 10 from Gregory? This is a question to Etid Medin Kha Akhenwathi. Okay. So he gives him these 12 anathemas. When this is happening, this is not isolated to two bishops. This isn't now just between Cyril and Nestorius. Now it's including all their friends. So Nestorius' friends, John of Antioch, Theodoret of Cyrus. By the way, the Church of the East, the Assyrian Church of the East in Persia, has nothing to do with this conversation historically. Anachronistically, we talk about them because we know the implications. But as this is happening, the Church of the East has nothing to do with it. As this is happening, it's the Church of Antioch, our church, the Church of Antioch, that has the problem. Okay? The Church of Antioch was Diophysite at this time because the patriarch was a student of Theodore. And his successor, which was also his nephew, was also a student of Theodore. And it keeps going until 468 that there's a Miaphysite patriarch of Antioch. So for the whole first half of the 5th century, sorry, I don't know what I did or how to fix it.
You mean Diaphysite, not Miaphysite, for a few years, right?
What's that?
Diaphysites.
From the first half of the 5th century, the patriarchs are Diophysite.
Yes.
Until 468, you get a Miaphysite patriarch. So the Church of Antioch sees these 12 anathemas. The whole school, Nestorius' friends, see these 12 anathemas, and right away they call them Apollinarian. They're heretical. Now, Cyril, who's Cyril's friends? Cyril, he has friends in the East, yes, like Juvenal in Jerusalem, like Rabula in Edessa. He has friends. But a very big, powerful friend he has also is the Pope of Rome. So Cyril writes to the Pope of Rome, and so does Nestorius. They both write to the Pope of Rome. Thank you, Yusuf. Sorry about that. But Cyril is smart enough and aware enough and humble enough, that's the key, to translate his writings into Latin before sending it to Rome, because he knows Rome doesn't know Greek at this time in history. Nestorius doesn't care, he sends it in Greek. مشكلتهم, right? So it takes a while for Rome to translate Nestorius's letters. Eventually, Rome sees that it was Pope Saint Celestine at the time. Cyril is keeping with the patristic faith, the faith of the fathers before him. Nestorius is innovating. So Pope Saint Celestine tells Cyril, because Cyril tells him, I don't want to excommunicate him on my own unless we do it together, because he's a patriarch of Constantinople. Celestine says, by the authority of my see and yours, Rome and Alexandria, he has 10 days to recant or he's excommunicated from the Catholic Church. Okay. So Nestorius says, what is this? Cyril is Pope of both Rome and Alexandria. And Theodosius, the emperor, hears about this and he says, no, we don't care about the ultimatum from Rome and Alexandria. We're going to do a council. Okay. So the ultimatum is scrapped. The ultimatum from the Bishop of Rome and the Bishop of Alexandria is abrogated because the emperor decided he wants to do a council instead. The council is going to be in Ephesus. Nestorius is in the city. We didn't talk about this? I could have swore we talked about it, but maybe I talked about it so much that I forget. So Nestorius is in the city. It's not far from Constantinople. Cyril gets there. A lot of the bishops get there. And Nestorius's friends, the See of Antioch, are late. Yeah.
There's only one emperor, right?
Yes.
Theodosius is
Theodosius.
the emperor of the entire Rome.
Correct. Yeah. Well, as far as what's important to the narrative, the Western emperor has, if he even exists at this time, which I don't think he did, had no real on the ground power. It was mainly Constantinople. But yeah,
Based in Constantinople.
right. Yeah, Theodosius II. So Nestorius' friends get there late, and John, Patriarch of Antioch, tells Cyril, if we're late, you feel free to start without us. Okay? Where is Cyril from? Egypt. John, where is he the patriarch of? Which is where? Syria, yeah? Okay. So, if you're Syrian and you're Egyptian, what are you? You're Middle Eastern. So if I tell you, oh, we're going to eat, we're waiting for you. It's okay, start without me. But you eat. Am I going to be offended? Even though I said don't wait. I'm still going to be offended. So Cyril starts, because John's late, Cyril starts. John is very offended. Okay? So he gets there. Cyril started the Council of Ephesus June 22nd, 431 AD.
Was he under pressure to start, or like?
No, he couldn't wait. He could not wait. The other bishops were telling him to wait. He didn't want to. Nestorius is in the city though, but he doesn't want to go to the council until his friends come. So he's refusing to go. Okay? They do the thrice summons. Remember, I told you guys the thrice summons before? They do the thrice summons. He's not there, deposed. Now, John arrives. He's furious. His whole team is with him. Theodoret, all those guys. They're all very mad. So they have another council in Ephesus, also in 431. Their own council, a rival council, with Nestorius present, anathematizing Cyril and the bishop of Ephesus, Memnon, his name was. And I can't remember if Juvenal was on the list or not, but they anathematize, they excommunicate them for heresy, for Apollinarianism of the 12 anathemas, which is weird because how can you condemn them for heresy if they're not there unless you condemn them for thrice summons? And if you condemn them for that, you have to have authority to preside over a council. So that has to be a different, where's the authority coming from that is giving you kind of, why do you think you can preside over a council and depose someone for a thrice summons when the council was already that one?
They were number two in the, according to Constantinople one, like to them, according to them. So they had authority to preside, I guess, after Rome, you know.
Yeah, but the issue here is if there is an imperial council that is already together, there's 300 bishops, yeah? Was it 300? No. I think it was 300. Someone can check how many bishops. We say it every time. The 318 and the 150 and 400, was it?
It says
250? 250, thank you. Okay. 250. The 318 and the 150 and the 250? Okay. So 250 bishops at Ephesus. How many do you have at the rival synod? 250 am طلع عليك?
Yes.
Okay.
200 to 250.
Okay. I think the canonical number we have is 200. I don't remember a 5 in it. أرقامي كلها مخربطة بس I think it was 200. Yeah. I think the canonical number for our liturgy is 200. إيمان ال 318 وال 150 وال 200. I think it was 200.
Or 200 to 250.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, so you have a canonical synod happening with 200 bishops present from everywhere. Rome also was late, by the way. Rome gets there late to Ephesus. And
Cyril started early. Saint Cyril.
yeah, we started early. God's will, I don't know. What do you want me to say? I say it all the time. الأقباط يزعلون من عندي. I say it all the time. You can't say that, Daniel. It's God's. Okay. Well, what would have happened if he waited? The Diophysite side would have been there. Maybe 451 wouldn't happen. I don't know. You never know. It is what it is, bad. 1,500 years we're crying about it. So, okay, Rome was late. The 12 anathemas of Cyril were read as the dogma of Ephesus 431. What does that mean? So 325, the first half of the creed, 381, the second half of the creed. That's anachronistic for your sake. In their mind, that was the creed for them. They weren't thinking we're just going to write half of the creed. As far as they're concerned, this is the creed, 325. 381 is thinking this is the creed. Just so you guys know, 431 had never mentioned 381 aslan. Like they thought of themselves as the second council in 431. So 431, they say the creed of 325. Okay, and they say nobody can change this creed. Why are they saying that? هيجي مسمار على قسطنطينية. That's why. So nobody can change this creed in 325. And then the 12 anathemas of of Cyril are the dogma defining 431 Christologically. So the rival council says they're Apollinarian heretics and deposed. How do we know who's the right side when we're looking at history objectively? How do we know? So we can go with the emperor's view, which is both are wrong. He deposes both. He says, okay, you excommunicate each other, both are excommunicated. That's what the emperor said. We can go with the Pope's view, the Pope of Rome, he sided with Cyril. Or we can see who keeps the faith before him. And we already talked about Gregory Nazianzus. Yeah? What Ephesus 431 does, the Cyrillian one, is it quotes many fathers in the council. It quotes Gregory, it quotes Julius of Rome, who was the Pope before. It quotes Athanasius. It quotes a lot of fathers showing that they have the same teaching.
What about Rabul?
What about him?
Was he like quoted? Because I think he
We're gonna talk about Rabula.
the same issue.
We're gonna talk about him. Yeah.
In the council that they did, the council that Nestorius and John was at, did they quote fathers to make their case?
Yes, but they were not as explicit, and some of them were controversial fathers, like Theodore. Like if you don't recognize them, then what's the authority there? You see, they're not quoting objectively. They're quoting quotes that are from their side that are not canonized by the whole church, like Athanasius or Julius or Gregory, these kinds of guys. They're less authoritative figures. Or they are giving a list of names, including these guys, but they're not giving quotes from them. So we can't even see what they said, you see? Okay. Rabula. Rabula of Edessa was having this correspondence because he was in the Syriac Patriarchy, the Patriarchate of Antioch, right? So he's fighting against the whole Patriarchate with these correspondences back and forth between him and the other bishops. And they're accusing him of being biased because he hates Theodore from before, while Theodore was alive. Rabula hates him. And that's what they're accusing Rabula of. Now, Rabula's name shows up as a signature, assignee on a list of names at the very end of the counter synod, the John of Antioch synod. His name is the last name on the side, on those who sign. How do we know it's not real? It's a forgery. Why? The Bishop of Edessa has a traditional place of honor among a list of bishops. His name traditionally comes after the names of the patriarchs present in the East. So for example, if you have the Patriarch of Antioch's name, the second name signed in the local synod of Antioch would be the Bishop of Edessa. Why then is Rabula's name the last, the very, very last? There isn't one after his. And the correspondence letters are already showing that the guy hates Theodore and none of you agree with him, with Rabula. We already have the historical evidence. So the idea that Rabula changed his mind or Rabula betrayed them, this is a later justification of why this. But in reality, Rabula didn't agree with them and didn't sign. And the only reason why they added his name is because they wanted to show a unanimity of the Patriarchate of Antioch. That's why they added his name. And for them to add it last shows how much they hated him. Okay? No, but Rabila was Miaphysite the whole time. We have writings from him. We have a big corpus. There's a very big book that we have that has his writings and his back and forth and everything. There's no doubt about this. Okay. Where are we in the story with Cyril and Ephesus? The emperor recognizes both councils, both are excommunicated. Cyril's friends are more powerful than Nestorius' friends, so his friends get him back in. As far as the emperor is concerned, Cyril takes his spot back. Nestorius remains excommunicated. It means he's in exile in the desert, in Egypt, ironically. Yeah.
What does it mean? How does it make sense for the emperor to excommunicate both sides?
So the emperor, for him, it's about legality. It's not about, the emperor is not a theologian, you know. For him, it's just who is the bishop here in this city, meaning he has that type of power in this city that the government will recognize. It's kind of like what the Indians are doing in India, right? The government is siding with a certain group over another group. It's kind of like that. So the government is the governor, the emperor. He recognizes Cyril to regain his position, while Nestorius remains excommunicated and exiled. There's a new pope in Rome. His name is Sixtus, and yeah.
So they were both exiled to Egypt, or where were they exiled?
Nestorius was exiled to Egypt.
Why?
Why? Because that's where a desert is that he felt like going to.
And then same with Cyril?
No, Cyril, he was arrested and in prison, but by the time he was out, he got his spot back. Yeah. Okay. So the Pope encourages Cyril, because, by the way, this excommunication doesn't just happen between Cyril and Nestorius. Now you have a schism in the whole church because Antioch is no longer in communion. Even if you replace Nestorius in Constantinople, but Antioch still has John. John is not in communion anymore with Rome and Alexandria. So the Pope of Rome is encouraging Cyril to reconcile John. And yeah.
When you have a whole kind of see, between sea excommunicate, does that include the jurisdiction that it oversees, like the rest of the churches that it oversees, or?
Yes, Church of the East you're referring to.
Yeah, so that's all that side is not recognized by Rome or
The Church of the East,
Alexandria at that point?
the Church of the East, as far as they're concerned, their only interaction with the Roman Empire Church is Antioch, like realistically speaking. They're unaware of everybody else. If they're in communion with the Roman Empire, that means it's with Antioch. Antioch is their representative of the Roman Empire. Yeah.
So you mentioned Saint Cyril was imprisoned, arrested. And
Yes.
So Nestorius and Saint Cyril
Yes.
both were imprisoned and arrested.
Yes.
I have like a hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, whatever happens, God forbid, we are, here in the Western diocese of the United States, our patriarchate gets into disagreement with Alexandria. Alexandria is right, we're wrong. Do we now have to switch? Do we have to kind of allegiance to Pope of Alexandria, or how would that work? Do we have to have like a between see oversee us, or how does that?
It's never been in the history of the church that all of the Petrine sees have been heretical simultaneously. And it's not always the case that Alexandria was at the head of orthodoxy. There have been times that Antioch was, like during the time of Severus.
Yeah, but if like some diocese within that patriarchate doesn't want to stay within within their side of of a certain concept.
Like Rabula?
Sure.
What about him?
Would he be in communion with Alexander?
He was in communion with Cyril, but as a bishop.
Yeah.
So, and also Maria Aqub al-Baradi. Yeah. So he's still a bishop under Antioch. Even if he's in communion with Alexander, Alexander doesn't annex him as part of the Alexandrian Synod. He maintains his patriarchal independence, even if he's not a patriarch, because he's not under Alexandria's jurisdiction.
But his side is not recognized.
His patriarch, even if his patriarch is in schism, he's a bishop. The patriarch is a bishop, and so is he. So at the end of the day, that's still a bishop who's in communion with you. It's not like he's just a priest or something. The bishop is a big deal. So you're in communion as a bishop. Like St. Ignatius said, wherever the bishop is, there's Jesus Christ, right? So our bishop, Mar Ogin, is in communion with His Holiness Mar Ephraim, Patriarch of Antioch. There was something over here.
So the jurisdiction under him is also in communion then?
Yes, right. Because who are they commemorating in the diptychs? That's who you're in communion with. Who are you commemorating in the liturgy? Okay. So Cyril gets his spot back, and he is encouraged to reconcile with Antioch. Antioch has the stance at this time, because a lot of the bishops are pushing for this. By the way, I misspoke. Rabila was not the only patriarch who was in the patriarch. Sorry, Rabila was not the only bishop in the Patriarchate of Antioch that was against John. The bishop of Malatia, Melitene, his name was Acacius, also was against John with Cyril. There was a Proclus of Constantinople was the replacement of Nestorius, but there was another one. He was very important at Ephesus. What was his name? There was Acacius of Melitene. If he comes to me, I'll remember. But there was three bishops who were giving homilies a lot at Ephesus that say, even if they tell you, we're not saying two persons, we're saying one person with two natures after the union, do not accept them. Okay? So, and these same bishops are telling Cyril, in reunion with Antioch, impose on them to anathematize Theodore. The Antiochians said, we would rather burn in hell than anathematize Theodore. We will never do it. There will never be a unity if we have to anathematize Theodore. It will never happen. So Cyril said, this is not practical. It's not a reasonable expectation. Plus, Theodore and Diodore died in communion with the church. So let's just put this on the side for now. What we can ask them for, a reasonable unity, is for them to accept the 12 anathemas, Ephesus, the condemnation of Nestorius. Okay, so the Antiochian side approaches Cyril. They have a formula of reunion that says Christ is in his two natures. Cyril rejects it. They come back with a counter offer from two natures. No problem. This is the concession. The concession is that in theoria, He is from two, even though, like we said before, the humanity does not exist even for a moment before the union. Okay? So, the agreement was done. They agreed. They re-entered communion with each other. No more problems, right? Everything is good. We wish. Yeah.
One thing, so Theodore was the teacher of John Chrysostom also?
No, he was his friend. Diodore was their teacher.
So Saint John Chrysostom didn't have anything.
Miraculous.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was talking to a Greek Orthodox priest about this. His specialty was Chrysostom. And he was telling me, like, it's miraculous how he wasn't influenced. You have to think about it too. Like, Diodore himself is from an Orthodox background. So, like, who are Diodore's friends? Meletius of Antioch, Eustathius of Antioch, Basil of Caesarea, Basil from the Cappadocian Fathers, Basilios, they were his friends. So it really, and Apollinarius was friends with Athanasius. The heretic Apollinarius was friends with Athanasius, who wrote against him. Athanasius eventually writes against Apollinarius. Cyprian, Saint Cyprian, was a student of Tertullian the heretic. There's some connection between Origen and Clement of Alexandria. So this stuff is rampant in church history. There's no way around it. People just think they're smart and then they kind of do their own thing at some point. Even Theodore of Mopsuestia himself criticized Diodore, his teacher. Said he went too far with the two-ness. Too much, he said. Okay? Now, this is a little detail that happened during the council, but I want you guys to know. John of Antioch wrote to Nestorius, this is before Ephesus 4:31. What's your problem with Theotokos? So we don't have a problem. John is telling Nestorius, we don't have a problem with it. Theodore himself told us, me and you together, that it's okay to say these things. It's okay to say Mother of God. It's okay to say God died. These are not issues because they're still understanding it within Diophysitism. You see? Nestorius said, yeah, no problem, I know. But Christokos is just a more complete of a title. Okay, so back to the union. We got to the union, everybody's friends. Was the union, the formula of reunion, it's called, formula of reunion of 433, was the union understood the same by both sides? It wasn't. How was it understood? How did Cyril understand it and how did they understand it? Cyril, how do we know how he understood? Because he wrote about it to the other bishops. The other bishops were like, what is this union that you agreed to? So Cyril tells them, what do you mean? I made them agree to Ephesus and to the 12 anathemas, and what's the problem? That's it. They anathematized Nestorius and everything. So we know how Cyril interpreted the union. What about them? How did the Antiochian side interpret the union? The Antiochian side interpreted the union. We don't have to accept Ephesus anymore. We don't have to accept the 12 anathemas. This replaces all of that. We just have to say that Christ is from two natures. We have to be okay with the Mother of God title, and we have to anathematize Nestorius. That's it. They took it as a replacement of, instead of understanding the union through the lens of Ephesus and the 12 anathemas, they took it as a replacement of Ephesus and the 12 anathemas, that Cyril is not imposing the 12 anathemas on us. That's how they understood. How do we know? From their writings. They say that. And not only that, they took it as Cyril repenting of the 12 anathemas. He said he repented of the 12 anathemas because they were Apollinarian. And God, unlike in the days of Moses, in this case, he softened the heart of Pharaoh. That's what they said. Okay? Because why? They wrote refutations. They wrote refutations against the 12 anathemas, their side. Okay. The 430s are closing in this situation. طبقة مستوية. Okay? It's cooking now. The 430s are closing. They have this way of thinking. Cyril of Alexandria reposes in the Lord in 444 AD. When he dies, Theodoret of Cyrus, the greatest student of Theodore of Mopsuestia, he said, after Cyril died, I feel sorry for hell because now they have to deal with Cyril. This is the formula of reunions. The guy, he signed it. And he's saying, I feel sorry for hell now that they have to deal with Cyril because Cyril died. And he wrote congratulations to all the bishops when Cyril died. Congratulations, he's dead. We're done with him. This is all available. Like nobody denies it. Okay? Again, the Church of the East is innocent of any of this. Any of this, the Church of the East is innocent from. Because why? They don't venerate these guys. The Church of the East doesn't venerate Theodoret, doesn't venerate John of Antioch. It has nothing to do with them. Who venerates Theodoret? The Rome. The Rome venerate Theodoret. And their 7th Ecumenical Council. The 7th Ecumenical Council for the Rome, Nicaea 2, 787, they say the blessed Theodoret. Yeah. Okay.
Now a question. Is the title blessed less than saint?
In any case, both are saying he's in heaven.
Okay.
And he intercedes for them.
Okay.
And
Cyril at the same time.
yeah, because like us, they believe in the communion of saints.
Okay.
So they are in communion with him. We agree with them.
Sure.
They are in communion with him. Yeah.
But he believes that Kirill in hell. Saint Kirill in hell.
He does believe that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So again, it's easy to look at this controversy and have the two teams in your head as us and the Church of the East. That's not reality. That's not what happened. The Church of the East has nothing to do with this. This is the See of Antioch. The See of Antioch and the See of Alexandria. Okay. So, yeah.
Well, what happened in 787? Why did it happen at that time that they bring him up?
I'm trying to remember why they mentioned his name. I can't remember, but he's like a mention in the council. Yeah. It wasn't like some apologetic reason, just some like authority citation or something. Yeah. They embarrassed themselves.
And Nestorius, so Saint Cyril passed away, reposed in 444, and Nestorius also lived out his
He's
life
alive.
in the desert.
Nestorius is alive, and it's important to remember Nestorius is alive.
Is this council confessed by Rome? Like
787?
yeah.
Yeah.
They,
The Chalcedonians all accept 787. Okay. If I'm wrong about any information, this is public and they could say it. And I'm 100% confident in what I'm saying. So, where am I in the story?
Saint Cyril.
Cyril passes away. Theodoret congratulates everybody. Saint Dioscorus of Alexandria the and I have a friend. He's half Armenian, half us in Sweden, but he's a Coptic deacon. So it's really funny. He knows all how everyone's related. Like he knows like Athanasius is related to Alexander, and Theophilus was related to them somehow, and Cyril's, and so Dioscoros also has some relation to Cyril, but I think it was his nephew. But also, more importantly, he was his hand-picked successor. Cyril picked Dioscoros to succeed him, and he was his deacon. So at the time, the patriarch had a deacon. That's how it was back then. He has his own deacon.
Archdeacon?
Yeah. So Dioscoros was the deacon of Cyril, who he was grooming to be his successor. Cyril picked him. And is he succeeding? When Cyril dies, all the bishops of the Synod of Alexandria die with him? No. They're all alive still. The patriarch died. So who is now patriarch, who the patriarch picked to succeed him, inherits the whole synod of the bishops of that patriarch from before, who was Cyril. He inherits Cyril's synod, and he's his schisma. Okay. So Dioscoros becomes patriarch of Alexandria. Leo is at this time patriarch of Rome. So Leo, Pope of Rome, Dioscoros, Pope of Alexandria. Upon Dioscoros' elevation to the papacy of Alexandria, Leo writes him a letter. And he tells him, unprecedented church history, I've never seen it. A patriarch telling another patriarch when and when not to do something. He tells him something like, don't ordain priests on this day, ordain them on that day. Like micromanaging something, and micromanaging what? You're not even the manager of Alexandria, right? We don't have a response from Dioscoros. If it's lost to history or he never responded, we don't have. So it just gives you an early indication of how relations are starting and where they're headed. Because why? Alexandria is the definer of theology leading up to this point in church history. It is presiding over councils, it is defining triadology, Christology, deposing heretics. That is where you go for orthodoxy. And Leo is aggressive and maybe envious a little bit. I don't know. I don't want to judge his intentions, but there's no reason for him to write to Dioscoros saying something like this. It's never happened before. And there's no need for it. How come Celestine didn't do that with Cyril, or Julius didn't do it with Athanasius? Nobody did that. Okay.
Would you say Leo had issue with Cyril himself? Maybe that's why he doesn't like his successor.
This is all, what's the word?
Speculation.
Speculation. But it's not unfounded, because there is certainly a connection between Augustine and Leo. Augustine was Leo's teacher. Who influenced Augustine in his commentary on the Psalms? Have you guys read Augustine's commentary on the Psalms?
Is it Plato?
Theodore of Mopsuestia. Augustine's commentary on the Psalms, in one of the Psalms, I think 123, something like that, he says, Jesus is talking to the Word, and he says, please don't take yourself from me. This is the same language Theodore uses in his commentary in the Gospel of John. Okay? So this concept of two gnome persisting is present in Augustine from the influence of Theodore. And I'm not talking about his retractions at the end of his life, whatever he retracted or repented from, whatever. It's not our problem. We're Syriac Orthodox. We don't have him anyway. We don't need to deal with that. The Copts can deal with it. But for us, so Augustine is saying this. Leo is his student. Remember, at this time, the Latins don't know Greek anymore. So they can't read, they're not reading Cyril. This is the stuff they're reading. They have Latin. So as far as Leo is concerned, he knows the story. Cyril is the good guy, Nestorius is the bad guy, but he doesn't know why. There's no evidence in Leo's writings, that he ever read Cyril. And on the contrary, there's evidence that he misunderstood whatever he did know. And this is from Roman Catholic scholars, like Father Price, who wrote the Acts of Chalcedon. He translated it, and he gives us all the minutes and the commentary. And he's a Roman Catholic priest, and he writes, Leo misunderstood Cyril. Just like that. Okay? All right. So 444, this is what happens. The Antiochian side continues to say the crazy stuff. Okay? They're continuing to say Cyril repented of Apollinarianism, and the 12 anathemas are Apollinarian, and these kinds of things. So Dioscoros is very annoyed, to say the least, and not just him, but all of Cyril's old friends. Juvenal of Jerusalem, don't think he's a good guy yet, but Juvenal of Jerusalem is one of the people who's annoyed, and many others. What time?
Like 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Okay. And then there's a situation in Constantinople. I'll do before that. There's a council in 447 in Toledo, Spain. Under the auspices of Leo of Rome. Okay? And in this council in Toledo, Spain, it would be probably better if I was to read them to you so we could wrap up here. We'll read you some of the anathemas there. Okay? Okay. Where is it? I had them here. I don't know where they are now. Anyways, just so you guys have an idea. It says things like the Son of God. You can't say the Son of God is the Son of Man, but the Son of Man is the Son of God. Or whoever says there's one incarnate nature after the union, he is anathema. Things like this. Things that are very explicitly against Ephesus and against the 12 anathemas and against what Cyril said. Okay? That's 447. Toledo happens in the west in Spain. And then that leads us to 448. I don't know if we can do 448 next time. We'll do the council of 448 and 449 and then Chalcedon. Yeah?
How come they call Pope Leo the Great? Like, what for them? What did he accomplish?
The tome. Garlic.
Okay.
Get it? Like thum? Tome? Tuma? Tum? Garlic? Yeah.
I have some questions from last time, actually. I didn't ask them last time. Because I was going to ask them at the end, then I forgot. Because I didn't use my phone to write them down. But anyways, yeah. So when a bishop presides over council, what kind of privileges does he have? Like,
He's just the like administrator, like the مثل يمشيها شلون أقول like you know understand what I'm saying like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
coordinates the council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
And then so it's up to his fellow brother bishop judging the whatever the consensus unanimous is, and he gives the judgment.
I see. He doesn't have more of a say.
No,
Oh,
no. Like for example, His Holiness Mar Ephraim II, when he's in the synod, he presides over the synod, but he has 2 votes.
Yeah.
Everyone else has 1. It's not that much more. And he's the patriarch of the synod. But if you're not, then it's different, you know.
Okay. Has it always been 2 to preside, like preside and co-preside, or
No, there's been 3.
Oh.
There's been 1. Depends.
does it have to be a patrine, see or no?
It's usually the case, but it's not. This is what's happened. There's no canon that gives us explicitly saying this, but this is the historical precedent, the tradition that we have.
Gotcha. Okay. So what kind of motivations or reasoning did Constantinople give to be number 2 in the Council of Constantinople? Because again, like, you know, we did mention that they have to be patrine, and they're not patrine.
Yeah, there's no how do you say, faith-based justification. The only justification is it's New Rome because it's the capital.
I see.
That's why it wasn't recognized. The canon wasn't recognized.
Gotcha. So okay, so you're saying that the one who presides kind of gives the final kind of word, and that's kind of what happened in Acts. Saint James, he had the last word, kind of went over
Presiding.
what Saint Peter said and the rest said.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. One more question. So we say Constantinople is, of course, ecumenical and inspired, and then, but you know, that canon we don't agree with. The Copts don't agree with the reordering of the seas.
Not only that, it was overturned aslan. The canon
During?
itself was overturned later in Ephesus 3:475. They undo the canon. That's where Ephesus 3:475 is where we accept Constantinople 381 as an ecumenical council for the first time. We are the first ones to say the creed of that council in the liturgy. We start doing that. And we overturn that canon in 475.
I see. So this kind of brings me
And
to-
Constantinople, the see, was present and accepted this.
Oh, okay. But now they don't, or they.
Who
kind
cares?
Of, right.
Yeah.
It's still in their. Is it one of their? It's not one of their ecumenical councils.
Which one? 381?
Yeah. No. The
475. It's only
three Ephesus.
This is after Chalcedon. So, because
Or
Constantinople.
3 Constantinople. you
Yeah,
said.
Constantinople becomes perpetually Chalcedonian in 536. So from that point on, there's no option for that anymore. They're strictly Chalcedonian after 536.
So even though they accepted the council, they went back on that basically.
Yes, they went back and forth a few times.
I see. Yeah. Kind of sided with Rome. If so, Rome didn't accept it. They didn't accept it.
Yeah, but
Something like
Rome,
that.
Rome itself didn't accept Canon 3, sorry. Rome itself never accepted Canon 3.
In First Constantinople.
Yes, Rome didn't accept it either. Rome didn't even accept Canon 28 of Chalcedon. It took them centuries to get Rome to recognize some kind of primacy for Constantinople. Yeah.
I see. So the way you recognize a canon or a whole council as inspired or binding or whatever is through another council that kind of goes back and says, or
No. You have to have reception, affirmation by the patriarchates. Like for example, before 475, there's no acceptance of 381 at all. At all. So Ephesus 431 happens, doesn't mention it. Ephesus 449 happens, doesn't mention it. there's no indication of Alexandrian acceptance of 381 whatsoever.
So how does that happen?
How does what happen?
A council be get recognized as ecumenical, inspired ecumenical.
So sometimes it takes time, like in the case of Nicaea with the Church of the East, it took almost a century, like 410 AD. It takes time, it takes reception of the patriarchates. You don't necessarily have to have a council canonize it.
So there's no like one way of going about it. It could
Correct.
be like through time. It could be through another council.
Yes.
Something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And plus, for the Church of the East, the synods they accepted in 410, they accepted a lot of 4th century synods. 381 wasn't one of them, even for the Church of the East.
Okay. One more question.
Sure.
If it's okay. So, Church of the East, actually, you said had autocephaly from Bishop of Edessa, or no, not really.
The Bishop of Edessa brought them what the Patriarchate of Antioch wanted for them to do.
So, Bishop of Antioch gave them that independence.
Yes. He wanted them to be autocephalous.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I had a question. So during the Arian controversy and during Jacob Barduna's time, were there any sees that were like Orthodox? Were all the sees like
In Jacob Berday's time, and what else?
and during the Arian controversy?
Yeah, so there were orthodoxies in both times. Like, you're saying in the whole world?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say more than half the church was Orthodox in the Arian controversy. Maybe around 51%. It's still more the majority, but let's say like 50, whatever you want to say. But half of the Christians were Orthodox. I don't think the Arians were ever more than half, in my understanding of the situation. A good book for this is Athanasius and Constantius by Timothy Barnes, but he's a biased against Athanasius, so keep that in mind. It's still a good historical account. In Jacob Berday's time, Alexandria was Orthodox, Armenia was Orthodox, Abyssinia was Orthodox. There were at least 3, if not more, bishops of Antioch that were also Orthodox. The issue with this time period is that there was a very conscious attempt to exterminate the Syriac Orthodox Church. So that's why our bishops were only a handful at this time. Yeah. Anything else, you guys? No?
Quick question. So the Church of the East had like, let's say, like jurisdiction over big regions, the Orient. Like, okay, like
You're saying why would we give that up? Kind of. What are you asking?
no, like I don't know. That kind of seems kind of like a vitrine thing, to have such big region to oversee.
Rome, being the capital city, it wasn't much more than that. Like, what was so special about Western Europe at the time? It's not like Western Europe now. Western Europe back then wasn't a big deal. Alexandria was a big deal. I think you're thinking of it in geography rather than actual churches and people. Even though they do eventually become the biggest church in the world. The Church of the East at one point becomes the biggest church in the world before Timur's massacres. Timur wipes them out. But the Church of Antioch was everywhere that they were. Everywhere that they were in Asia, Turkestan, all these places, the Church of Antioch also had parishes, even though they were bigger. Okay? So it's not about Petrine or not. It's That's just missionary efforts. The Syriac Christians in general, whether Jacobite or Nestorian, both were very big on missionary efforts. They were known for this. Yeah.
When did the Church of the East then become like Nestorius?
The Church of the East has diophysite periods that are inconsistent. Like, for example, we're going to talk about him next time, but their Catholicos patriarch at this time, Mardid Isha, he was a student of Theodore. But the one who succeeds him, Marbawe or Babawai, he's called, he was Orthodox and he's on our calendar. He was Miaphysite. But after he's killed, Akakius takes over, and from that point on, they are Diophysite for the rest of the way. 484 AD. That he breaks communion with Antioch, Akakius.
Are we the ones who decided to, like not stay with their bishops?
Yes.
And okay.
Because we'll talk about it in a few weeks, but
Jacob Berdeus, he's the one that gave
no.
us. He gave us bishops.
Before I'm talking about our patriarch. So Mar Babawai was killed by the Persian king because of the instigation of Barsoma of Nisibis, who was a saint for them. And so he's killed, and then they have a synod in Beth Lepad in 484 and install Akakius as the new patriarch. So we don't recognize this. We excommunicate them for doing that, and then till now, that's the situation. Yeah.
There was also like a school of Nisibis there, right? With like I know Saint Ephraim's teacher,
Jacob.
He established
Yeah.
school of Nisibis.
Right.
So
Jacob.
the school of Antioch was more.
Antioch, Diodore establishes his school in Antioch on the school of, like the model for him is the school of Nisibis. Yeah. So the school of Nisibis, Jacob and Ephraim, Jacob of Nisibis and Ephraim are there. It's then conquered by the Persians, left, abandoned, and then eventually there's a second phase of it where Narsai becomes the teacher of the school of Nisibis, and the textbooks in the school of Nisibis, he replaces Ephraim with Theodore of Mopsuestia. And then that kind of becomes the trajectory of that school. But today, the church of Nisibis, of St. Jacob, and his crypt and the baptistry that Ephraim built are all still in Nisibis, and they are property of the Syriac Orthodox Church. Yeah. Any questions? That's it? Okay. جمع أبو بروح وقديش وحدا وشعري وعامل أبون بسمعي نتفادى شو تيثين كنت